Ray Trucks is here with Jain Building Products and NuCedar. Today we're with Superior Siding in Margate, New Jersey. We're going to be talking about proper installation of our modern shiplap siding. Before you get started, you want to make sure you have a plumb and straight wall. NuCedar is to be installed on a solid substrate, minimum 1/2 inch OSB or plywood. You want to make sure that your wall is properly wrapped with a weather-resistant barrier. Superior Siding likes to use a more high-quality weather-resistant barrier such as blueskin. However, we see various weather-resistant barriers, a lot of drainable house wraps being applied. You want to make sure that your wall is plumb and straight. So once your wall is properly flashed and wrapped with a weather-resistant barrier according to local building practices, we're ready to start our install. We want to make sure we have the correct tools to do so. So you're going to need a chop saw, standard blades, no diamond tip blades are required. Also having a level to make sure that your siding is plumb and straight on the wall. Having some heavy duty cleaner to make sure that your pre-finished siding doesn't have fingerprints all over it, and keeping it nice and clean on the job is recommended. We also have a caulk. You can use a OSI Quad Max Clear. This is really to be used only in the scarf joints or to back caulk the siding where it's going to be running into a trim board. NuCedar is sold with a complete system of drill bits, 2-inch screws with your modern shiplap siding. Based on the profile that is sold will determine how many screws you will get in your order. And you also will have color match plugs to match the same siding as the NuCedar, as this is a concealed fastening system. The plugs are tapped in place with acrylic hammers. That's to prevent the plugs from getting damaged on the texture and the coating. So it's key that you have acrylic hammers on the job site. You'll want a measuring tape to be able to measure your siding and make sure you have the right pieces for the install. And NuCedar offers the modern shiplap in 8, 10s, 12s, and 16-foot lengths. So that gives you the ability to manage your scrap ratio on the job site. Once you have your drill bits on your guns, you're ready to start installing your NuCedar siding.
Hi, today I'll be explaining a little bit about the installation of our 8-inch NuCedar shiplap. And typically what we like to do is we'll find the center of our piece, and once we've established that, we'll put a layout on the ground so when you're up in the air you don't have to try to deal with this and you get a more consistent pattern with your screwing system. So once you find your center, I'll take my speed square and mark 1 1/4 off the bottom, 1 1/4 off the top, and then 4-inch center on center, because with your 8-inch piece you need 3 in the center, 3 on each end. And then once we've established that, we'll pull 16 inches from the center all the way down, and then you will only need 2 screws, which would be your 1 1/4 up, 1 1/4 down. And once you've established all that, you're ready to put all your marks and send it up to be installed. And when you're establishing your 3 screw patterns on your ends, you want to be no further than 2 inches from your cut. You could be a little closer, but no further than 2. All right, so we have established our layout on the wall and getting ready for install. And in establishing our layout, we have a straight level line and we have the proper distance between the starting point and the finish point, so you don't end up with like a 1-inch rip. You want to try to keep everything uniform. So we've established that, and getting ready to install on our line, we will have a 1/4 inch reveal for our shiplap, which gives you a 1/2 inch of play that will be hidden. And with installing it, we like to use a trim nailer and nail above into that 1/2 inch mark, so that once our next piece lays over it, the nail will be hidden, and then you can come back and have a nice straight line and put all your screws in and plugs and make sure that everything is nice and straight and laid out and ready for install. All right, so as you can see, I got my glue and we're ready to install our first piece. You can see our painted edge of the product. That way, if anything does move, you'll see the color and not the white. And I like to take a little bead of glue and just keep it right underneath of your lap, because that's your shortest point and it may ooze out on you a little bit. So just keep it quite nice, tight, small bead right on the edge of the wall and your product. And just a nice small bead, nice and clean, and you're ready to install. All right, and when you're putting your piece, you want to make sure your edges fit nice. I got a nice line up there. We're on our line. And when I'm doing this, I like to make sure our tools have clips and hooks on them, so it's right there, you're not fumbling around. 1/2 inch coverage, tacked on. And now our piece is ready to be screwed. And we already have our layout that we did on the table, so there's no muss, no fuss. And when you're screwing these in, you want to make sure you keep your screw as square as possible so it goes in straight. So in our next step, when we plug it, everything lays flat and smooth. And this is a pre-finished product, so we want to make sure that we don't scratch it, dent it, hit anything. Keep it straight. And as you'll see, it snaps off automatically at a set depth so that your plug fits in perfectly. All right, now that we have our first piece on and our layout established, there's also another side-to-side layout that we'll be doing, and that's to make sure that you don't end up with like a 1-foot piece in your corner. You want to make sure that you utilize the material as well as possible, and they do provide an 8, 10, 12, and 16-foot length to make sure that you cut down on your waste and your cost, obviously. So once we have that established, we'll get in our corner. We'll do our inside corner with 2 sample pieces we like to use to make sure that your wall's at a 45 and that all your angles match up. In doing so, we'll put it on our level lines. And that looks like a pretty good 45. So what I'll do is I'll take our pin nailer and nail it above our 1/2 inch line. And that'll be able to give us a good number from our finished product to our finished product, to assure that we have a good number. 130.5, plenty good. And we will cut our piece, paint our piece, mark it, and put it up. Okay, so now that we have our number and our piece up on our cut table, we're going to use our miter saw to cut our piece. And these are 45s typically. When you have your piece on your table, you want to assure that it's nice and tight against your fence and down flush and firm so you get a good clean cut to match your previous cut. And within doing this, I like to do my long point first. That way I can hook my tape on there and get a much more accurate measurement for the short point of my inside miter. When you're cutting this, you want to remember to cut it on the face side so you're not sliding your piece around and scratching your finished material up. Okay, now that our pieces are cut, we're ready to paint our edges. We have these color match paint dabbers that come with the product, and you want to make sure you shake it very well. And once you think you have it shaken good enough, shake it a few more times. All right, and then you just dab your edges. And that way, if your scarf joint moves at all within the weather change, you will see your color match behind it and not a big white line. And we like to keep rags on us, handy, nice clean rags, so if when you do dab, if you get a little bit on your finished surface, you can wipe it off real quickly before it dries, and it doesn't leave a different sheen or anything like that, and it hides the scarf joint as well as possible. And when you're making your cut, you want to ensure that you're flush against your fence, nice square, laying down solid on your cutting surface. And after you cut, you want to slide your piece off of the saw blade so that it doesn't give you any imperfections in your cut. You want a nice, crisp, clean cut. So you cut it and slide your piece back before you lift out of the cut. Now that we have our piece cut and ready to install, before we glue everything, we'd like to make a dry run and a dry fit to make sure that everything fits properly. And as you can see or can't see, I'm a shave long, so it's much easier to do this before you glue and make a mess of everything to take it back to the saw and make your adjustments if needed. All right, so now I've made my adjustment. I'm fitting well. Take it off the wall. And this is where our adhesive for our scarf joints comes in. And when you do this, you want to be, you don't have to put a whole lot. You just want to keep a little bit almost on the wall, almost like a gasket seal there, just onto the wall and onto the piece to keep the moisture out and to keep our pieces from splitting as well as we can. And like I said, just a little bit, because if you put too much, you'll have it oozing out and making a mess and not having the best possible product, finished work that you can have in it. So now we're ready. It's on. Get over there. Slide our piece in. And like I said, since this is our first piece, we'll still be tacking it up with our trim nailer, keeping it above that 1/4 inch reveal that will be there. And now that piece is ready to be screwed in place, and we will get the layout for our next piece. A lot of times with your finished piece, depending on the size of your wall, you can use the cutoff of your finish for a starting piece, and that will give you random seams in the wall and nothing doesn't look out of place, and you use a lot less waste. All right, so now I have my cutoff from my finished piece to lay out for my starter piece. And I've set it on the wall because it's a fairly short piece so I can see where my layout will be. And I've measured from where I'm going to cut my starter piece to stay in line with the nearest screw pattern. So when you're screwing it up, everything stays uniform and nice. So I've measured back 16 feet, and it leaves me with a 3-foot finished piece, which is probably about as small as we'd like to go. So that will work for us, and then continue the process. We will take the cutoff from that one and start with this one. That way we have no waste, and we'll do that continuously up the wall until we reach the top. Now that we have our piece cut, marked, and painted, we're ready to start stacking it. And as you can see, we have our 1/4 inch reveal, and with the NuCedar product, it's dadoed that way, so you can just set it right on top and you get the perfect reveal every time. And when we're setting our outside corners, I like to use a sample piece to line up. And that way you can make sure that everything is all nicey nice and you're ready to go. We will put it on there, just put a few tacks and take our next measurement and repeat. And with like using any material, you always want to make sure that you go through first and inspect your pieces. You want to make sure you got your cleaner and a rag, and just make sure that you have a nice clean surface, no issues with your piece. because you don't want to go through all that work, put it up, and then to come to find out there's something wrong with it. So just always make sure you inspect everything, wipe it down nice and clean so you have a nice clean wall material to start with, and then you should be good to go. All right, and as you just seen, I will take the bit provided and put it in a sleeve, and that's why we left our plugs out on the corners, because you can back these out a little bit and manipulate the corners to make sure that everything lines up smooth and flush and tight. The straighter you start your plug, the straighter it'll go in, and the better it'll sit. Ready to go. Okay, so now that we have our piece on ready to join to our inside corner to our scarf cut, what I'd like to do is beforehand is to take a sample piece and just make sure that your angles line up, that it's a proper angle and that everything fits tight. On both ends, you double check it, make sure everything's nice, and then you're able to pull your number and put your piece in. And this is marked and painted, and sometimes it's a little easier if you put your little bit of adhesive on just the very inside corner so everything sticks and stays nice and waterproof. Tap it in there a little bit, make sure it goes in. Yeah. All right, and then we just screw it as we've been doing. And also with your inside corners, once you screw them in, sometimes they may split apart a little bit. What I'd like to do is put an extra bit that goes deeper in so that you can just back the screw out a little bit and you can manipulate the material a little in and out by using the extra bit.
As Superior Siding has shown us today, there are certain tricks of the trade that you can do for speed and for a better quality installation. We do see a lot of folks will use stainless finish nails to shoot on the lap where it's going to be overlapped by the next piece. So it's simply tacking the boards on the wall. It is not replacing the fastening schedule that NuCedar calls out for with the Starborn screw and plug system. You can fasten and tack the boards so it makes it a little easier for guys to come behind and put up the screws and plugs. And you certainly don't want to put the finish nails in the face of the board. Unlike cedar, the NuCedar will not swell up around it and hide that, and it could get really messy when trying to touch up these pre-finished boards in the field. So the touch-up is really used for aesthetics. As you've seen, anywhere they're just gonna see the white core, the material of the board, and less is more when applying the touch-ups. So when installing your NuCedar Modern Shiplap, depending on the profile that you select will determine the fastening pattern that you will follow for the NuCedar. This job, they've used a 8-inch profile with a 1/4-inch gap on our smooth Argos siding. The profiles will always have a more aggressive fastening schedule at no further than 2 inches from the ends of the boards, the middle of the board, and when you reach a scarf joint. So you can see here they have 3 fasteners at the scarf joint, no further than 2 inches on either side, and then 2 fasteners every 16 inches in between. The same goes for where they're doing their mitered corners. On either side of that mitered corner, they're going to have that more aggressive fastening schedule of 3 screws, keeping that mitered corner nice and tight. Our smaller profiles, our 4-inch and our 6-inch, you will fasten those 2 inches at the ends of the boards and in dead center, and then 1 every 16 inches in between, where the 8-inch profile and our 10-inch profile will get 3 on the more aggressive fasteners at the ends and the middle of the board, and then 2 every 16 inches in between. So NuCedar will provide all the screws, all the plugs and drill bits, touch-ups for these jobs when you go ahead and order your material from your local retailer. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to NuCedar for further support.